The charity Prince Harry built in Princess Diana's name is suing him for defamation. Not a tabloid editor with a score to settle, not a disgruntled palace aide leaking to the Mail. The actual charity, Sentebale, the organization he co-founded in 2006 to help children living with HIV in Lesotho and Botswana. It filed its claim in the High Court of England and Wales in March of 2026, naming the Duke of Sussex as a defendant. And by the time I finish telling you what is buried inside this case, inside the disclosure rules, inside the funding trail, inside the photograph from Althorp, you will understand why one senior barrister looked directly into a camera and said 6 words that should terrify Harry more than any tabloid headline ever has. I think he may have met his match. But the lawsuit is only one thread in something much bigger. Because while Prince Harry fights for his reputation in a British courtroom, a 30th anniversary gala honoring Princess Diana is being organized around his schedule, not Prince William's. A photograph from Althorp, the Spencer family estate, has detonated across the internet, sparking outrage that reached even the people who normally defend the Sussex brand. And Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, has been accused of turning Diana's private burial ground into an Instagram moment. Every single piece of this connects, and I am going to walk you through all of it, thread by thread, because I promise you, the last detail is the one that ties the entire story together in a way that nobody is talking about. Let us start with Sentebale, because this is the foundation on which everything else cracks open. And to understand how devastating this lawsuit really is, you have to understand what this charity meant not just to Harry, but to Diana's entire legacy. The name is Sesotho. It means forget-me-not. Prince Harry chose it deliberately, a tribute to his mother, Princess Diana, the Princess of Wales, who had spent her final years breaking the stigma around HIV and AIDS at a time when most public figures would not touch the subject. In 1987, Diana shook the hand of an AIDS patient at London Middlesex Hospital. No gloves, no hesitation. That single gesture did more to change public perception of HIV than a decade of government health campaigns. It was the handshake heard around the world. And it became one of the defining images of her life, a woman who understood that the camera following her everywhere could be turned into a weapon against ignorance if she was brave enough to point it at the right thing. Her younger son appeared to understand that inheritance. In 2004, during his gap year, Harry visited Lesotho, a tiny landlocked kingdom inside South Africa, where roughly a quarter of the adult population was living with HIV. He saw orphanages full of children who had lost both parents to the virus. He saw communities hollowed out by death, and he decided to do something about it. In 2006, alongside Prince Seeiso of Lesotho, he co-founded Sentebale, a charity for children affected by HIV and AIDS in Lesotho and Botswana. For nearly 2 decades, nobody questioned it. Not the tabloids, not the palace, not even the fiercest critics of the Sussex brand after the split. Sentebale was the one thing about Harry that everyone agreed was real. It helped real children. It carried Diana's spirit in a way that felt earned, not performed. No Netflix crew required. Then, in 2025, something broke. And the story of how it broke is one of the most revealing things about Harry's trajectory over the past 6 years, because it follows a pattern that anyone paying attention has seen before. A relationship that starts with genuine purpose, a slow contamination by ego, by brand management, by the gravitational pull of the Sussex machine, and then a rupture, always a rupture. Harry quit his role as patron of Sentebale. He and the co-founding patron, Prince Seeiso, released a joint statement saying they had resigned with heavy hearts and were in shock following what they described as an increasingly bitter leadership battle inside the organization. The details were murky at the time. Most observers assumed it was a messy breakup, unfortunate but ultimately a private matter between a charity's board and its founder. That assumption was wrong. It was not the end of the story. It was barely the first chapter. On Friday, the 10th of April, 2026, Sentebale announced on its official website that it had commenced legal proceedings in the High Court of England and Wales. The charity was seeking what it called the court's intervention, protection, and restitution. The claim, filed in March 2026, names two defendants: the Duke of Sussex and Mark Dyer, Harry's longtime mentor and a former equerry to King Charles. Dyer is a former army officer who served as something close to a surrogate father figure to Harry for years. The fact that both men are named tells you the charity's legal team believes whatever happened was coordinated between them. Now, here is the part most people get completely wrong about this lawsuit. They see the word defamation and they think it is about money, about damages, about some financial settlement that will make the problem go away. It is not, or at least not primarily. Sentebale's board said it was seeking the court's protection after what it described as a coordinated adverse media campaign conducted since the 25th of March, 2025. A campaign that, according to the filing, caused operational disruption, reputational harm, and an onslaught of cyberbullying aimed at the charity, its leadership, and its strategic partners. Read that language again. Coordinated adverse operational disruption, cyberbullying aimed at leadership. That is not vague corporate boilerplate designed to justify a nuisance claim. That is a legal team constructing the architecture of a serious defamation action, brick by meticulous brick. And it is aimed at the man whose name is on the charity's founding documents, the man whose mother's memory gave the whole thing its reason to exist. And at the center of this storm stands one woman, Dr. Sophie Shanduka. If you do not know her name yet, you are about to, because she is the single most consequential opponent Prince Harry has ever faced in a courtroom, more formidable than any tabloid editor, more dangerous than any government lawyer arguing about security arrangements. And I will tell you exactly why. Because her story alone demolishes the narrative that Harry's critics are all privileged insiders protecting the establishment. Shanduka is the chair of Sentebale's board. She is a lawyer by training. She held executive positions at JP Morgan and at Meta, two of the largest corporations on the planet. She was awarded an MBE, Member of the Order of the British Empire, one of the most prestigious civilian honors in the British system. She grew up with nothing. Grew up in circumstances that most people born into the British establishment cannot even imagine. She built a career through education in Canada and Britain that would be remarkable for anyone, but for a woman who started where she started, it is extraordinary. And she had already beaten Harry once before the lawsuit even existed, by reporting the charity to the Charity Commission over allegations of bullying, harassment, and misogynoir. That last term is specific and matters. Misogynoir refers to discrimination experienced by Black women at the intersection of race and gender. It is not a generic accusation. It is a precise claim that carries weight in institutional settings and regulatory bodies. In a Sky News interview, Shanduka described what she called a culture of silence inside Sentebale. Board members too afraid to challenge the Duke of Sussex in meetings. She used the word belligerence to describe his conduct at the table. Stop and sit with that image for a moment. A boardroom full of qualified professionals, experienced adults with careers and reputations and expertise of their own, sitting around a conference table afraid to push back against a prince. That is not leadership. That is not even authority. That is intimidation wearing a title, and it is the same accusation, almost word for word, that former staff at Kensington Palace made about Meghan Markle during the bullying inquiry that preceded the Sussex departure from the royal family. The echoes are deafening. And then came the request that, if proven in court, might define this entire saga. After a polo fundraiser in Miami generated a viral photograph that embarrassed Meghan, Harry's team allegedly asked Shanduka to issue a public statement defending the Duchess from the negative press. Shanduka's answer, which she repeated on camera in her Sky News interview, was 4 sentences long and devastating. "We are not setting a precedent by which we become an extension of the Sussex PR machine." Let me say that again, slowly, so it lands with the weight it deserves. A children's HIV charity built in Princess Diana's name, operating in some of the poorest communities in southern Africa, was asked by the founders' team to act as a press shield for his wife. And the woman running it said no. But she went further. She told interviewers that the number one risk to the organization was not funding shortfalls, not political instability in Lesotho, not donor fatigue, not any of the operational challenges that typically threaten charities working in the developing world. The number one risk, in her words, was the toxicity of its lead patron's brand. The man who founded the charity to continue his mother's work had become, according to the woman charged with keeping that charity alive, its single greatest threat. A children's HIV charity built in a dead princess's name. And the woman running it says the biggest danger to those children is the man who put them there. Now, you need to understand what triggered this spiral, because the charity polo fundraiser in Miami is where the fuse was lit, and it burned in both directions simultaneously, toward the lawsuit and toward the final collapse of trust inside the organization. According to Shandaka's own statements, Prince Harry called the Sentebale team and said he was filming a Netflix show and wanted to bring a camera crew to the fundraiser, a charity polo event, donors attending in good faith to raise money for children with HIV, and Harry wanted to turn it into content for his streaming deal. Nobody on the event team had been told in advance. Nobody who bought a ticket had signed up to appear on a Netflix production. The venue pulled out because the event shifted from charitable to commercial, and the costs went through the roof. The organizers scrambled to find a replacement venue at short notice, burning time and goodwill in the process. On the day itself, Meghan Markle arrived unannounced. She brought a friend, a very famous friend, Serena Williams. No prior warning, no coordination with the event organizers. No discussion about logistics or security implications. The entire fundraiser was thrown into chaos, and then came the moment that circulated around the world. During the trophy presentation, footage appeared to show Meghan telling Shandaka to step aside, to move away from Prince Harry during the photograph. Just move. That image went viral. Millions of views, thousands of articles, and the charity that was supposed to benefit from the event became completely invisible behind the spectacle. What happened next is where the real damage began and where the path to the High Court became inevitable. After the press tore that trophy presentation moment apart, Harry's team contacted Shandaka and asked her to put out a public statement defending Meghan's behavior. She refused. And from that refusal, a chain reaction began. The tension escalated. The leadership battle intensified. Harry and Dyer departed. And ultimately, the charity concluded that the damage to its operations and reputation was severe enough to justify a formal legal claim in the highest civil court in England. All of it traceable, if you follow the thread, back to one decision. The decision to bring a Netflix camera crew to a charity event without telling anyone. Here is where I need you to pay very close attention, because the legal terrain Harry is standing on in this case is nothing like what he has experienced before, and the difference could be the thing that finally breaks him. In every previous courtroom battle, Prince Harry was the one who brought the fight, against the Mirror Group for phone hacking, against the Sun for unlawful information gathering, against the publisher of the Daily Mail in a separate action, against the Home Office over his security arrangements when visiting the United Kingdom. He picked the timing, he picked the battlefield. He controlled the narrative around each case, staging press conferences, making statements outside courtrooms, framing himself as the underdog fighting a corrupt media machine. And when things turned against him, which they did spectacularly in the most recent case, he had the option to walk away, to settle, to redirect. Not this time. This time, he is the defendant. He did not choose this fight. Dr. Sophie Shandaka chose it for him. She sets the pace. She picks the moment. She decides when hearings are scheduled, whether the case settles on her terms, or whether it goes all the way to a full public judgment. And Harry has no choice but to defend himself. He cannot walk away from a defamation claim brought in the High Court. The court will proceed with or without his cooperation, and a default judgment would be catastrophic. And the rules of English defamation law are where this becomes truly terrifying for him. This is the part that changes everything, and I need you to understand it clearly, because most coverage of this story has gotten it wrong or skipped over it entirely. In the United States, the First Amendment protects speech. If you sue someone for defamation in an American court, you, the person bringing the lawsuit, carry the burden of proving the defendant's statement was false. The defendant is presumed to have spoken freely and truthfully until the claimant proves otherwise. English law runs in the exact opposite direction. Under English defamation law, whatever Prince Harry said about Dr. Sophie Shanduka is presumed to be untrue from the moment the claim is filed. He carries the burden of proving, on the balance of probabilities, that his own words were true. The law sides against him before a single witness takes the stand, before a single document is reviewed, before a single question is asked in open court. Think about what that means in practical terms. Harry does not get to say, "Prove I lied." He has to stand up in front of a judge, because there is no jury in English defamation cases, just a judge, and prove that every statement he made about Shanduka was true. Every word, every characterization. Every claim he made about her, whether in public statements, in private conversations that later became public, or through intermediaries who spoke on his behalf, if he cannot meet that standard, he loses. And if he loses a defamation case brought by the charity he built in his dead mother's name, there is no PR strategy on earth, no Netflix special, no Oprah interview, no Instagram story that recovers from that headline. But even before a verdict, even before the trial begins, there is a process in English civil cases that one senior criminal defense barrister described in a single word: nuclear. It is called disclosure. Americans know it as discovery, and it may be the most dangerous thing Prince Harry has ever walked into, more dangerous than the trial itself, because disclosure does not care about your narrative. It does not care about your brand. It cares about documents, and documents do not lie. Under English civil procedure, both sides in the case are required to hand over every relevant document, every email, every text message, every WhatsApp conversation, every file on their computers, every message sent to every person they contacted about the subject matter of the case. And as the barrister specifically noted, and I want you to hear this phrasing exactly, certainly communications with journalists, the only thing protected is communication between you and your lawyer. That is called legal professional privilege. It is absolute and sacred under English law. Everything between Harry and his solicitors stays confidential, but everything else, every single other message, document, note, or communication, everything else is fair game. Now stop and imagine what that means in concrete terms. Every WhatsApp message between Prince Harry and Mark Dyer about Sentebale, every text between Harry and Meghan discussing Sophie Shanduka, every email to an advisor or a PR consultant about the charity's leadership, not just since the lawsuit was filed, going back years, going back to the very beginning of the tension. If Harry texted Meghan late one night, venting about Shanduka, mocking her decisions, strategizing about how to undermine her position on the board, those messages are disclosable, every single one. In a public court bundle that any journalist in England can walk into a courtroom and read, and if the other side believes you are hiding documents, they can apply to the court for a specific order compelling you to produce them. The barrister described it as a tremendous weapon because it reveals all sorts of things that people never expected to see the light of day. And here is where this becomes genuinely poetic, in the darkest possible way. This is the exact weapon Harry used against every newspaper he ever sued. He demanded their emails, their internal communications, their private planning documents, their newsroom memos. He won headlines doing it. He built entire press conferences around what disclosure revealed about Fleet Street's methods. He stood outside courtrooms and told the world that the truth was finally coming out, that these documents proved what he had always known about the British press. Now, that same process, that same legal mechanism is pointed directly at him. The weapon he forged in his war against the tabloids is the weapon now being used against him. The Greeks had a word for this kind of story. They called it hubris, leading to nemesis. The hero is undone not by an external enemy, not by some overwhelming opposing force, but by the logical consequence of his own defining trait. The very quality that made him powerful is turned inside out and becomes the instrument of his destruction. Harry's aggression in the courtroom, his insistence on total transparency for his opponents, his belief that mandatory disclosure was a moral good when it exposed the people he was fighting, created both the legal precedent and the public expectation that total exposure is what justice demands. He cannot now argue for privacy in the face of disclosure. He spent years arguing the exact opposite. The public will not accept that the same man who demanded every email from every newspaper editor should now be exempt from handing over his own messages. The same barrister raised, on camera, without being prompted, the possibility that Harry could simply delete everything, wipe the messages, claim it was standard practice, say the phone was lost, and then he confirmed, also on camera, that doing so would be illegal. Destruction of disclosable documents in English civil proceedings is a contempt of court. Nobody is saying Harry has done that. But when a King's Counsel volunteers that scenario about a member of the royal family without being asked, and it does not make a single front page, you understand how seriously the legal world is treating whatever might be hiding in those messages. The silence of the mainstream press on that detail is, in its own way, the loudest alarm bell of all. And there is one more detail that has received almost no attention, and it might be the most significant detail of this entire story. Dr. Sophie Shandauka has confirmed publicly that the legal costs of this case are not being paid by the charity, no donations are being used, no funds raised for children with HIV are being diverted to pay lawyers. But she has not said who is paying. Think about what that means. A multi-year high court defamation case against a member of the royal family with barristers, solicitors, court fees, disclosure management, expert witnesses, and likely a trial lasting days or weeks is being funded by someone who is choosing to remain anonymous. Somebody with very deep pockets looked at this situation and decided that bankrolling a legal war against the Duke of Sussex was worth the expense. And they do not want you to know who they are. One theory, raised by the barrister himself on camera, is that a newspaper group is behind it, a group that spent years on the receiving end of Harry's lawsuits. A group that watched him drag their editors through courtrooms, demand their internal documents, run up their legal bills, and hold press conferences about the results. A group that might now see an opportunity to return the favor through a proxy. The barrister called it a guess, a wild guess, in his words. But if it is true, then every legal battle Harry waged against Fleet Street produced the single outcome he never planned for. Not a chastened, humbled, reformed press. A press with a grudge, a budget, and now a way in through the back door of a charity he used to run. And there is another detail that has been reported but not connected to this case, and I think it should be. Tom Bauer, in his book, reported that Harry allegedly asked some Sentebale donors to redirect their funds to Archewell instead. Archewell is the Sussex Foundation, their own organization. If that allegation is true, and if it is raised in court, Harry was not just damaging Sentebale's reputation, he was draining its income. Taking money that donors intended for children with HIV in Lesotho and redirecting it to his own brand vehicle. The implications of that, if proven, go beyond defamation. They go to the heart of charitable governance. The trial is not expected before late 2027. That means roughly 18 months of published pleadings, preliminary hearings, disclosure motions, judicial rulings on what must be produced, and enormous headlines. All of it landing in the same window as the Invictus Games in Birmingham. Harry does not get a quiet year. There is not one available. Every month between now and a potential trial date will bring a new procedural step, a new filing, a new batch of documents entering the public record. Now, while the legal storm was gathering force, something happened in July that moved the Diana question into an entirely different arena. And this is the part where I need you to understand something about Althorp, about the geography and the intention behind Princess Diana's burial, because without that context, you will miss why the reaction to what happened next was so extreme. Althorp is the Spencer family's ancestral estate in Northamptonshire, England. It has been in the Spencer family for over 500 years. It is where Princess Diana grew up. And on a small island in the middle of an ornamental lake on the grounds, surrounded by water and by trees and by silence, she is buried. Charles Spencer, Diana's brother, once wrote that the grave's remote island location was intentional. It was designed, in his words, as a buffer against the insane and the ghoulish. The water around the island was the point. The inaccessibility was the point. Nobody was supposed to be able to walk up to that grave and take a photograph. Nobody was supposed to turn that path into content. The isolation was a deliberate architectural decision, a physical barrier between Diana's remains and the world that had consumed her while she was alive. During a UK visit in the summer of 2026, Prince Harry and Meghan stayed at Althorp. And Meghan posted a photograph on Instagram showing Harry and their son Archie carrying bouquets of flowers while their daughter Lilibet walked beside them down a tree-lined path. The composition was deliberate, professional even. Shot from behind, the figures silhouetted against greenery and light, the kind of image that an Instagram influencer would spend an hour staging for maximum engagement. People magazine, briefed directly by the Sussex team, confirmed the location was Althorp. The bouquets, the path, the destination was unmistakable. They were walking toward Princess Diana's grave. The backlash was immediate, global, and unified in a way that almost never happens with the Sussex story, which usually splits along partisan lines. The word that kept appearing from commentators and from thousands of ordinary people online across every political persuasion and every demographic was the exact word Charles Spencer had used years earlier when he designed the burial, ghoulish, because this was not a private family moment. Private family moments do not get photographed from behind with professional composition, briefed to People magazine with location confirmation, and posted on Instagram for millions of followers to engage with. This was content. And the content was manufactured from the walk to a dead woman's grave. Reports said Prince William was devastated. King Charles was reportedly genuinely shocked. Even people who have spent years defending the Sussex brand against tabloid attacks were uncomfortable this time. Because there is a line, and posting a staged photograph of your children walking toward their grandmother's burial site on social media, the very kind of platform Princess Diana never lived to see, is so far beyond that line that even the most sympathetic voices struggled to frame it as anything other than what it looked like. Exploitation of Diana's resting place, of the children in the photograph, of the grief that was supposed to remain private. And the timing made it worse. Meghan posted the Althorp photograph the day after the Wales family released Prince George's birthday portrait to mark his turning 13. Within hours, she dropped additional pictures of Archie sitting in a cockpit, walking on a beach, images that multiple commentators described as designed to redirect attention from the future king's milestone. One observer pointed out that Prince George had been photographed seated in a plane, and then, as if following a script, Archie appeared in a cockpit the very next day. Coincidence is a word you can only use so many times before it stops meaning anything. When the pattern repeats with this kind of precision, coincidence becomes strategy. And that Althorp photograph does not exist in isolation. It sits inside a pattern that stretches back years, and once you see the full pattern, you cannot unsee it, and you cannot pretend it is accidental. Meghan Markle has been photographed wearing the same cut of swimsuit Princess Diana was famous for. She filmed herself riding through Paris with her feet up in the back seat of a car near the same streets where Diana died in that tunnel in August of 1997. She posted the footage on Instagram while promoting her wine brand. The backlash was ferocious because the imagery was unmistakable. A woman in the back of a car at night in Paris, on streets haunted by the most infamous car crash of the 20th century. You do not do that by accident. Not if you know the history. And Meghan, who married into this family precisely because of that history, knows it. And according to multiple reports, the Althorp graveside photo was not even the first time a similar idea was proposed. Sources claim Meghan suggested a joint visit to Diana's grave. Prince William, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, and their 3 children, alongside Harry, Meghan, and theirs. 7 of Diana's grandchildren, arranged at the burial site together. Photographed, published, a visual tableau of royal reconciliation staged at the most private and sacred site in the Spencer family's possession. Prince William's reported response was one word: grotesque. William visits that grave in silence. No cameras, no announcement, no Instagram story, no briefing to People magazine. He takes his wife, he takes his children, and nobody ever hears about it. That is what a private act of grief actually looks like. No audience, no engagement metrics, no magazine confirmation. Just a man, his family, and a quiet island in the middle of a lake in the English countryside. Which brings us to the one remaining thread that still connects these two brothers and the event that could sever it permanently: the Diana Award. It is the last royal patronage on Earth that both Prince William and Prince Harry share. The charity celebrates young people who make a difference in the lives of others. It has played a central role in keeping Princess Diana's memory alive through action rather than spectacle. Both brothers are patrons. They have taken turns appearing at events in recent years, carefully managed by the charity's staff to ensure neither brother encounters the other. And now a 30th anniversary gala is being planned for 2027, a black tie event, a full program of events. And everything about how it is being organized tells you exactly where this story is heading. The Mail on Sunday reported that the event is being timed to coincide with the Sussex family's trip to Birmingham for the Invictus Games. Not around Prince William's schedule, around Harry's. The event, which would pay tribute to the enduring legacy of Princess Diana 3 decades after her death in that Paris underpass, is being organized by the Diana Award itself. Both brothers will reportedly be invited, and according to a source quoted in the same report, Meghan wants to attend. A source said Harry wants her to be part of it, to be closer to his mother's legacy. Prince William's position is simple, immovable, and has been consistent for years. Nothing official connected to Princess Diana involves Meghan. That is the line, and it has not shifted by a millimeter. But the real fear inside William's circle is not one gala. It is what one gala becomes. One photograph of 2 brothers standing together under Diana's name. One image shared across every front page and every social media platform on the planet. By the following morning, the narrative writes itself. Harry is back. Harry is relevant. Harry is still royal. The rift is healing, and every organization, every streaming platform, every brand that invested in the Sussex story gets its investment revalued overnight. One photograph becomes a currency, and the people trading it are not the people who have William's interests in mind. In 2017, to mark the 20th anniversary of Diana's death, the brothers made a joint appearance at a Diana Award ceremony at St. James's Palace. 10 years later, the distance between them is measured not in miles, but in lawsuits, leaked conversations, Netflix specials, and a book called Spare that described private family moments in detail that made the entire royal institution flinch. In March of 2024, William attended a Diana Award event to mark 25 years since the charity's founding, while Harry appeared later via video link. Since then, the annual awards have been held virtually, but next year's events will be in person, and every informed commentator following this story is saying the same thing. William should step back. Let Harry have the red carpet. Let Harry have the gala, because William does not need a staged event to honor his mother. He does it every day. In how he lives, in how he serves, in how he carries the name without ever needing to explain it. The Diana Award may be the last door still open between 2 brothers. And everything about how this 30th anniversary is being organized, the timing around Harry's schedule, the pressure to include Meghan, the desire for a photograph that tells a reconciliation story, suggests that door is about to close, quietly, deliberately, and permanently. And consider the broader picture of Harry's financial and organizational position, because it matters for understanding how exposed he really is. The Invictus Games, his signature project for wounded veterans, faces its own pressures. There have been reports of sponsors pulling out, Tom Bower's book alleged that funds earmarked for the games were spent on private jets and five-star hotels for Harry and Meghan. Birmingham, the city hosting the next Invictus Games, only recently emerged from a period of municipal bankruptcy. The equation is painfully simple: no Invictus, no Harry. Without that platform, his relevance to the veteran community, the one demographic that genuinely respected him independent of the royal brand, evaporates. And what is funding his legal defense against Sentebale? A lifestyle brand, a jam, and homeware line with decidedly mixed reviews. A Netflix deal that has reportedly been downgraded in scope. A cooking show that was canceled after 2 seasons. Meanwhile, an anonymous funder with very deep pockets is bankrolling Shandaka's legal team, possibly, if the barrister's speculation is correct, a media conglomerate with years of accumulated grievance and the patience to play a very, very long game. So step back and look at the full picture, because when you lay every thread side by side, the scale of what is happening to Prince Harry becomes impossible to dismiss as bad luck or unfair treatment. One brother co-founded a charity in his mother's name. That charity is now suing him for defamation in the High Court of England and Wales. One brother's wife posted a staged photograph from his mother's private burial ground on Instagram, then had the location confirmed through a celebrity magazine. One brother's team asked a children's HIV charity to act as a public relations shield for his wife and was told no. One brother is facing 18 months of court hearings, mandatory disclosure of private messages to his wife and his mentor, and a public judgment under English defamation law that presumes him wrong until he proves otherwise. One brother's own legal weapon, the disclosure process he wielded so aggressively against Fleet Street, is now being aimed at his own inbox, his own phone, his own late-night messages to the people closest to him. The other brother, Prince William, has never had a charity sue him, never faced a regulator's complaint, never had to explain a graveside visit to a judge, never had a fan base he needed to ask to stop attacking people on the internet, never given a single interview about his mother's death that he later had to defend in a courtroom, never needed a magazine to confirm his grief was real. Same mother, same surname, same childhood, same grief. Entirely different outcomes. I promised you at the beginning of this video that the last detail would tie it all together, and here it is. Years ago, after a charity visit where the charity itself was wiped off every front page because the story became about messages Meghan Markle wrote on bananas, a senior royal figure told her 6 words: "The focus is the charity. It is never about you." Princess Diana understood that instinctively. It is why her charity work landed with the force it did, why it changed actual policy, why it moved actual mountains of public opinion. She had the most photographed face on earth, and she pointed it at other people. The handshake at the AIDS ward in London Middlesex Hospital in 1987 was not about her. The walk through the Angolan minefield in January of 1997 was not about her. The time she sat on the bed of a dying man while the cameras rolled was not about her. She made herself the smallest thing in the room and the cause the biggest. That was her genius, not the glamour, not the fashion, not the camera. The disappearance of self in service of something that mattered more than she did. Her younger son put her name on a charity for children with HIV. That charity is now suing him. Her elder son carries the same name, the same face, the same legacy, and has never once had to explain any of it to a judge. Not once. In 2020, Prince Harry told the world his family was trapped, his father King Charles, his brother Prince William, trapped, and he, Harry, had escaped. 6 years later, he is a defendant in a British court, sued in his mother's name. English defamation law presumes him wrong until he can prove otherwise. His private messages to his wife are subject to mandatory disclosure. The woman he reportedly tried to push off a board now sets the pace of the litigation, picks the moment for each hearing, and decides whether this whole thing ends quietly behind closed doors or in a full public trial that will generate front-page headlines for 18 months straight. And there is no escape clause. No Netflix special that makes it go away. No interview that reframes the narrative. Just a courtroom, a judge, and a pile of documents that will eventually tell the truth whether Harry wants them to or not. And the other son. The one Harry said was trapped. He carries the same surname, the same mother, the same grief, and he has never needed to explain any of it. Because someone told this family the rule a long time ago over a box of fruit at a charity visit, and only one of them wrote it down. It was never about you. One brother lost everything carrying Diana's name. The other never had to carry it. He just lived it.